Welcome to the Kings Beat podcast. I am James Ham, Kings Insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. Joining me today, Fox 40, Sean Cunningham. Sean, how are you?
Oh, I'm great. I'm wanting to hear all about your Mexico trip, though,
Oh,
because you had a time.
I did have a
all about your Mexico trip, though.
Oh,
cool echo.
You
had a time. Hey, that's me.
You know what? That's my fault. There we go.
Well, it's not my fault.
There we go. That's unusual. I had the YouTube channel opened up and it went live on my own laptop.
Nice.
Okay, and of course we have Brenden Nunes from the Kings Pulse podcast. Brenden, how are you?
I am doing well. Starting off in a Sean way, talking about the weather, but I hate this heat. It's too aggressive. I'm a walker, and right now, after 10 o'clock, I'm not allowed to step out my front door. So not a fan. But I also want to hear about the Mexico trip for what it's worth, James.
Okay, well, we'll start with the Mexico trip. Is that my two friends here are both getting shot glasses, and they're cool. They're cool shot glasses that have earphones. The schools have earphones because, of course, we're podcast friends. So shot glasses for my friends.
It does look like you.
There we go. Yeah, Mexico was amazing. I hadn't been to Puerto Vallarta before. We went with some friends that have timeshares. Okay, so there's that old adage, like don't buy a boat, get a friend with a boat, right?
Yeah, and you've got 9 of them.
Yeah, so you guys have a friend with a boat. I have a new one for you. It's don't buy a timeshare, just have friends with timeshares, because we have friends with timeshares and it was wild.
And your friends are my friends, and my friends are your friends. Let's go to Mexico.
Yeah, we had a 2,400 square foot, 3-bedroom condo overlooking the ocean for 7 days. So yeah, it was nice. It was nice. So we had our own hot tub. It was cool. Nicest vacation I have been. Nicest that type of vacation that I've been on. So.
I don't know what that means.
Nice, as in 5-star, that's what it felt like, 5-star. Like we had all inclusive, and we ate and drank all day long every day, and we had a good time. And then we couldn't get in the ocean. I don't go in the ocean anyways, but we couldn't get in the ocean a couple of days because of crocodiles. So I didn't know that crocodiles sometimes get loose in the bay, and so yeah, that was kind of strange. Yeah, anyway, it was a good trip. It was a good trip with the family. We brought some extra boys, some of my older son's friends with us, and we were there with another family, so it was fun stuff. So but the Wi-Fi was horrible, much like my Wi-Fi might be today at my house. I don't know, so hopefully it holds on. Anyway, we got a lot to talk about. Before we get to that, let's do some basics. Number one, if you're watching here on YouTube, jump on board with give us a thumbs up and subscribe. We're almost to 3,000 subscribers. We could get there today if everyone who's watching subscribes. You also cannot comment. Oh, maybe you can today. Maybe I didn't change that. Normally, you can't comment if I click a little button if you haven't subscribed to the channel. But we're doing a lot of work here. I apologize. We did not do a podcast last week. I had spotty internet here and there. I did go on the radio one time, but it was a quick hit. And I was wearing a sombrero. Or a big hat. Not quite a sombrero, but a big hat. Outside of that, jump on board with the Kings Beat. We're doing a ton of crazy work over there. Breaking news and keeping you updated on everything that is happening with the Sacramento Kings. Become a premium subscriber so you get access to everything. I left a bunch of stuff unlocked this last week because I want everyone to be able to get in on the free agent stuff. So make sure that you guys jump on board and support the cause. We're going to hang out tomorrow, guys. We've got California Classic. We might as well start there. Are you guys excited to get back to the arena, get back to the sweltering heat of Sacramento and watch some suspect basketball?
it's cool in the building. You're not going to put up with the heat. I mean, you're in the heat for like not even 5 minutes. That's not so bad. The building is going to be immaculate, and atmosphere and temperature, climate control, and all that kind of stuff will be fantastic. So the basketball will probably be really shitty, but that's summer league basketball. It's it's fun. It can be fun. You get to learn a little bit about some guys. So yeah, I want to see these 2 new draft picks. Want to see Keegan Murray play and see how he meshes with some of these guys and see what type of different role he plays. So there's a lot I'll be looking forward to, and seeing even Luke Laux on the sideline as a head coach. So the first 2 days of minicamp, really only got to see one day, and that was kind of fun. But yeah, Brenden, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I enjoyed watching some of the Stockton games last year and kind of the developmental guys. And I think that this is an opportunity, if you want to start with Keegan, who it sounds like will play at least Cal Classic and then they'll reevaluate for Vegas. But this is a guy that shot like 1 pull-up jumper per game last year. He could get a lot more opportunity to play on the ball, initiate the offense in a couple games here. And then, of course, some of the guys that you're bringing back are interesting as well. Kessler Edwards, your 2 ways from last year, Keon Nemi. And I think there's guys towards the end that are interesting as well, like Jake Stevens catches a lot of people's eye. Soli Boom, I hope is how you say this, is Kobe Jones' teammate at Xavier. He was his backcourt partner who shoots the heck out the ball. So it's fun. I think that I like watching some of these up and coming guys trying to fill a new role. I think the first summer league I watched, like Bam Adebayo, was in year 2 and he's playing point guard. And that was his first glimpse at like, okay, the playmaking that's there. So I think people that get on Keegan, like I do think it's a good opportunity in a limited, as long as you're not running them too hard.
Yeah. Are we going to get to see any of the big name? Well, I mean, we know Victor Wembanyama won't be there, but what are we thinking about the other top tier picks?
I honestly hadn't heard anything other outside of Wembanyama. So, I think they'll be in the building. I think you'll probably see. I think that the plan would be to have one of them have Miller and some of those other guys play like at least one game before they all go out to Vegas beginning on Friday. So, obviously they're going to run it back with the Hornets and the Spurs on Friday in Vegas. So, hopefully they'll get one game in that Sacramento can see. So at least Brandon Miller.
Yeah, I was going to ask too. At Stockton last year, their point guard, the local kid, who really had a really
Jordan
strong
Ford,
season. Yeah. How old is Jordan Ford?
20. I'll look that up real quick.
23, 24?
Yeah, he's in a nice little range.
25.
Okay, 25. I'm wondering, this is kind of a strange question, but do you think that there's potential for someone like him to maybe earn a 2-way out of this? With this year, you can have 3 2-way contracts. But my thought would be is if the Kings don't bring in a natural third point guard, maybe they could cover that by signing a 2-way guy to that can play point guard, leaving him at Stockton most of the season. But when you have injury issues, maybe you could pull him up. I don't know. It seems like he really played well in his season at Stockton.
Yeah, and they won. Yeah, and they won. And Luke Laux talked about that just the other day, using the Gabe Vincent model and his journey as something to compare to with Jordan Ford. So that's certainly his goal, be it Sacramento or otherwise, go to a place where he can, make an impact. This summer league is going to be so huge for him. He might be destined to go back to the G League. He might be fortunate enough to grab a 2-way contract. I think that might start possibility with a training camp invite, something like that, whether it be in Sacramento or elsewhere.
Yeah. And Brenden, we were talking about this before we got on. The Kings have all of these, they've got James Lawson, they've got Colby Jones, they've got Keon Ellis, they've got Neemias Queta. What do you think that they're going to do with the 2-way contract? I mean, it seems like an interesting question now, because you do get 3 of them and you can't fit all of these guys on the roster. So like, do you think that there's potential for some of these guys to be back on 2-ways or for any of these guys to be on 2-ways?
Yeah, I think Keon Ellis makes a lot of sense. I think he's somebody that, showed some promise last year, but needs more time to, I think put on some strength would be pretty big for Keon and kind of just continue to develop his game before I think he's ready. I think Jalen Slauson is another one, right? Just 54th pick, pretty raw. I think giving them time to adjust to, what Sacramento wants from him, getting a taste of being around the main squad and trying to get a feel for maybe what their role in the NBA would be, and then performing that at Stockton for Slauson makes sense. And then after that's where it gets tricky. Like, I would probably think Colby Jones is a roster spot. And then maybe you're talking about Keita here, and Keita has one more year, I believe, of being eligible for a two-way with Sacramento, and Len was just signed as the backup, but maybe this is a year where Keita's on the two-way and he spends more time with Sacramento than Stockton this time, and he gets a little bit more opportunity. So Slauson and Ellis are the two obvious ones to me. And then after that, I'm a little unsure. I don't hate the idea of Jordan Ford. I thought Jordan Ford was really, really good last year. He's a great three-point shooter and consistently has been. Play makes, finishes well. Almost like I'd imagine his NBA role almost being like Yogi Ferrell-ish.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. I think the Kings are going to take the opportunity at Summer League to look at some of these guys, to maybe address some of the like.
Oh,
there it is.
There it is. I'm not blaming the Mexican Wi-Fi. I'm blaming James's Wi-Fi.
He warned
He'll be
us.
back. Thinking about that too, one of the things to look out for in Summer League, as we talk about possibility of someone like Jordan Ford, kind of latching on or being that point guard role, is they're having a lot of guys. I mean, obviously Colby Jones is somebody that they're high on with his playmaking. You saw Slauson bring the ball up quite a bit, and they want Keegan Murray to do the same, play the De'Aaron Fox role on this team in Summer League. So I think they want to have playmaking at multitude of positions, and there's some worthy candidates. It'll be interesting to see how even somebody like Chris Duarte can kind of fit into that once that trade becomes finalized. So it'll be fun as our layout goes weird. You can't even see us right now, but at least the audio people can still hear us.
Does Summer League almost sort of work as a G League tryout? I feel like, last year a lot of the guys ended up translating over. This year there's a lot of returns, but then a lot of new faces too.
Yeah, 100%. And you saw people like, especially with other teams, really. This year you've got a couple of familiar faces. The Alex, like Alex O'Connell, Comanche. I think there's two or three others, but it's kind of nice to see at least some continuity and some camaraderie and people that have that familiarity with one another, and see how it translates to other guys that have a little bit more of the NBA experience. So, I think it was interesting to see someone like Kessler Edwards talk about how this is going to be his third Summer League. And typically you don't see a player play that often in that many Summer Leagues. So he might be somebody like Keegan Murray, where maybe he doesn't play the entire trip, but being around the camp and being able to practice with these guys will be more impactful than really them playing in games. I don't know that him playing in the entire schedule is something that they have circled on their calendar or anything like that, but it's definitely going to be a fluid situation for those guys. Hi, James.
I'm back. Sorry, my Wi-Fi is all over the board this morning. Sorry. This afternoon. Yeah.
Tell him to stop streaming in the other room.
Yeah, I've switched to my phone. Just hopefully that will work. I don't know. I don't usually have this many issues, especially on the weekends. Okay. Well, I'm not sure where you guys were, but I think we've got a lot to talk about either way. Monty McNair's been crazy busy. We heard maintain and improve, and let's just start there. Do you feel like over the last 3 days, 4 days, maintain and improve has happened? We have all kinds of craziness. I'll just rattle them off and we'll get into each of them. Domantas Sabonis is signing a new massive $217 million extension. It's really not $217 million. So that's one thing. It's more like 29.7 million bumped up, and then he'll start making huge chunks of change in the coming years. So that's a big one. $195 million in new money. Harrison Barnes returns on a 3-year, $54 million. Trey Lyles, 2 years at $8 million. Sasha Vezenkov comes over, 3 years, $20 million. Kings make a trade for Chris Duarte. Alex Len back for a 1-year deal. The Kings have been busy. How confident are you guys that this is a maintain and improve situation?
You definitely check the first box. Maintain is the obvious one that was accomplished here, and I think that you're betting on internal improvement. Well, I guess I'll start by saying, say that Duarte fills your Terrence Davis role. In my mind, that's an improvement. I think that Duarte is plays within himself a little bit more and does have some intriguing moments defensively. My understanding of Duarte is somebody that has a really good relationship with Domas. Some of the Portland people, or I'm sorry, Indiana people shared that, they were speaking Spanish to each other on the court. I think they have a good relationship with each other, but I think that he's an upgrade over TD. And then if you look at your 4 depth being, say, Murray, Lyles, and Vezenkov, and Sasha pretty much replacing Mezzi in this case, I think that's a improvement. So I think that you did get improvement on the depth, but overall, you're kind of staying the same here and betting on internal improvement. The way that this team takes its next jump is by getting another level of play from De'Aaron Fox or from Keegan Murray or maybe Domantas Sabonis. I think Kevin Huerter, Malik Monk are both young as well. So they still can go make a swing for another guy. But in my mind, I kind of interpret it as the guy wasn't available right now. And while they mention maintain, improve a lot, the other wording that I catch a lot is aggressive yet disciplined. And I think that this is one of those discipline moments where the guy maybe wasn't available that they thought would take this team to the next level at the price that they thought was fair, and therefore decided to go back with what they know worked. I get why running it back can be frustrating, but you look back at last year, it was a really successful season. These guys got their first taste of postseason, and they're a fairly young group.
Sean?
Yeah, they definitely maintained and improved, and I know I think a lot of fans, from what at least everyone's vocal on the social medias, so the people who are typically unhappy will bubble to the top a little bit, and I don't think anyone should be surprised by them having certain guys like Harrison Barnes, Trey Lyles back, especially when you start to look. I think Brenden alluded to this with the being aggressive but disciplined and not having the guy out there. It's like, well, no, there's certainly guys that could have filled a role and could have been an upgrade. But when you look at the massive money that was going for some of those guys, would it have been worth it? The interesting thing about having somebody like Harrison Barnes back at the money that you have him, having somebody like Trey Lyles back at the money that you have him, is it's certainly manageable. You're not talking about 4 or 5 year contracts. You're talking about 3 years at right around 18 per for someone like Harrison Barnes. And these are movable. If there becomes a trade in the future where you feel you can get better, you have some movable pieces still. And I think that's attractive, especially now that you've got the ultimate prize of the offseason, which is getting the extension for Domantas Sabonis. That is far and away the biggest move that they could have made, and makes this offseason an A+. So kudos to them. I think they should be popping bottles in that front office once they were able to put that renegotiate an extension deal together, and Domas taking less money because and really kind of buying in to keep him and Fox together, and that to me is the biggest accomplishment of their offseason, and they've been very savvy in the way they've done things. So yeah, while I might have expected a different name or two, you probably shouldn't have, because it's not like you were hearing anything outside of that. Yeah, they're going to be aggressive. They're going to try and attach names to things, but you see the likes of Jeremy Grant get what he did, and Kyle Kuzma not really get the $30 million that a lot of people thought he might get. There's some Fred VanVleet, who has just one of the most extraordinary contracts that I think I've seen in recent memory. The money's out there, man, and I think they were looking ahead to what lies, the continuity, keeping everybody together, running back what they've done in the 3 seed in the West, but also being able to improve. I think Duarte's a massive pickup, guys. We already had Sasha Vezenkov kind of circled and penciled in on this roster. So they're really counting on that to pay dividends as well. So yeah, there's some moves that they can probably still make. But overall, I think it's a pretty successful offseason.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to get to the Sabonis deal first. Sean said something there that is something that Adrian Wojnarowski has put out there, that Domantas Sabonis left some money on the table. I'm not quite sure what they mean by that. And I'm one who, number one, was like all over this story. Like 2 months ago, we started talking about this, but then last week I heard that they had started having this discussion, which we already talked about. So his contract, he got boosted to 29.7. It goes 41.6, 44.9, 48.5, and 52.4 for a total of $217 million over the 5 years. It's $195 million in new money, which is what we were talking about, right? The maximum that Sabonis can get, from what I know, is like 42.8. So maybe he left like $1.2 million in the starting money. And then, so maybe he left $5 million over the course of the 4-year extension on the table. But the only other way that he would have made more money is if he rolled the dice and waited till next summer. Then he could have got a lot more money, and he could have got another year on top of his deal, but he also would have had to pay for $22 million this year. So I'm not quite sure what the big, he was so generous and left some money on the table, because I don't really see it. I don't, when we're talking about 217 million bucks, I'm not going to really give a guy a pat on the back for leaving $3 or $4 or $5 million on the table. Does that make sense to you guys? Because I'm slightly confused by that line of that. It's what I read.
Well, a lot of it comes out of the cap from this season, to be able to up the money that he'll make this year. And we'll see how the money is spread out. But I think just the taking away the ability to make more money as an unrestricted free agent is all that means.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, I think that that's true. But he also would have risked a whole lot going in through an entire season and hoping that, no injuries happen, nothing else happens. This is kind of like, for me, it was a no-brainer early on when you start looking at the high dollar figure. But of course, he could have got another year if he waited until next summer. To me, it felt like the way it's written was that he's saving them money this year, which he's not really saving them money this year. He basically got as much as he could possibly get out of this extension without, a little bit on the back end. But either way, I think it's a brilliant, stroke of genius move. I mean, basically you're able to trade the 24th pick for $25 million. That's basically what you in cap space over 2 years, and the $12 million here, it freed up the ability to go out and do this, to get Sabonis locked up and to complete all of these other transactions. And I also think the way that this works out for the Kings is so interesting, from the cap side. So the way that you look at Sabonis getting extra money, but then Lyles only basically having a $3.4 million cap hold, but them getting him for $8 million. Sasha, they're using on the room exception, so he doesn't really count. Alex Len, they're getting on a veteran's minimum, so he doesn't really count. The way that they've mapped out their salary cap space in order to spend all of this money is really, really high level and incredible, capology stuff, that hats off to those guys for really thinking through. We talked about it last time, the two buckets, right? The TPE, the MLE, and all those things versus being a cap space team. And what they were able to do is be a cap space room team, and just spend so efficiently and do everything that made a lot of sense. Did they get a big name player that wasn't already on the roster? Not really, but I still really enjoy what they've done. I did not think I would feel this way at the end of it if this is all that happened, but the Duarte addition, the, landing Sasha, all of these things that actually mean something to the team, I think were really, really strong. So I do agree that it was a maintain and improve situation. And you still have, what Brenden said, you have plenty of opportunity for this team to to grow organically, not only as like a whole, but also for individual players to step up and become better. And so people who are worried about maybe Harrison Barnes decline, well, you're going to see, as Harrison Barnes might decline a little bit over the next 1, 2, 3 years, you're going to see Keegan Murray start to pick up his game and start to increase who he is as a player and cover some of that decline. And again, Sasha Vezenkov, I compare him to, like, worst case scenario, Davis Bertans, who's making $17 million a year. And so you're getting like an elite stretch four, an elite shooting stretch four, not an elite stretch four, but shooting stretch four for like a bargain basement price. And I thought it might come in a little lower than that, but I still thought it was really good value. So I was impressed. And I even like, what do you guys think of the Trey Lyles deal? Because he's the one that, has professed his love to Sacramento and like wanted to come back so bad. And then like, initially, like first of all, I had that deal like the night before, but the numbers didn't make sense, and they ended up coming down off of the numbers that I was originally hearing. But I think it's a pretty strong deal, a $16 million deal for Trey.
Yeah, it's they know what to expect from him. They wanted the continuity. They saw an upside with him. He fit this team remarkably well, and especially when they go small. Still feel like there's some work to be done around him, but him coming back at that money, it was 2.5 like last year, and be able to turn that into an $8 million deal is good for him. And I think, manageable for the Kings, especially. I don't think it's an overpay. I think that's going to be a move that's just going to be one of those solid moves that they made. And if he can duplicate what he did last year, it'll be a massive success.
I mean, it's a guy that was, playing in the postseason for this team. So I think that $8 million a year is good value for him. I do have questions of sort of opportunity cost, because I feel like there's positional overlap with him and Sasha, and it just leads to some questions for me of like, are you thinking of Lyles at the back of 5 maybe a bit again? I liked that look last year, but that was more so, I think, the best of limited options rather than maybe something that you build with having that in mind. So I think there is some questions there for me of what is this going to look like? And, they still can bring another guy on. So maybe that clears things up a little bit. But I think that contractually, that's great value for Lyles. He was an important piece to this team, wanting to be here. Like, the chemistry, you can kind of just roll your eyes at. But I do think there's value in that. There's going to be times where, beginning of the year, the Kings could be rolling because they have this continuity and this familiarity with each other while other teams figure it out. So I like Lyles. It's just with Sasha, I'm interested to see how it looks.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest question. Is Lyles your backup 5? Because as of right now, it kind of feels like he is. And then I would say, like, look, if we're looking at the way you only need someone playing, 13, 14 minutes a game behind Sabonis. The fact that Lyles can play alongside Sabonis is big. Lyles can pass, he can shoot, he can rebound, he can do just about everything. He's a really, really high basketball EQ player. I think that he will slide into the small ball 5 position and play a lot at the 5 for the Kings this year. And then I would even look at the way, they brought Alex Len back, but Alex Len, he played like 162 minutes all of last season. I was surprised that they did bring him back. And, but I also look at like the Neemias Queta thing. Is it possible that they'll give Neemias Queta an opportunity to fight it out for the 3rd center job on this team during training camp and then see how it goes from there? Because I think that that's a distinct possibility that, he's still an option to bring back. They did pick up his qualifying offer at $2 million. And if you bring him back and you have him on the main roster, you could use him in a way that, they kind of used Len last year, where, as like the break in case of emergency guy, or they could legitimately give him a shot, like against bigger players. And if he fails, they've got Len as sort of the fallback again, who proved to be, I think the one thing I'll keep saying about Alex Len, he was such a pro's pro last year, right? Like, he didn't complain at all. Like, I talked to him about it a couple of times. He's like, look, we're winning. I'm not going to complain. He's like, I love this group of guys. I'm having a good time. I'm traveling with the team. Everything's going well. I'm healthy. He's like, would I like to play more? Sure, I'd like to play. Everyone wants to play more. He's like, but like, I know my role. My role is to be a pro here, and the coaches said it from top to bottom. Like, he shows up early. He works hard. He's always in the gym. He's doing the work. He's being an example. So I didn't mind the Alex Len thing. I just would have probably preferred that they chased Mason Plumlee, like I've tried to get them to do for the last 2 years. I thought that would have made sense as well. Do you think that they're done there at the 5, Sean?
I probably wouldn't bet on it, but I think they're still going to probably take a swing at trying to fortify that position. But if at worst case you've got Alex Len and you mentioned the small ball 5 with Lyles, see how Queta factors in there too, if at all. If at worst case that you already know what that looks like to a degree. So with the exception of not really knowing how Queta can fit in an NBA roster, I think that would be the biggest question mark there. But with Alex Len, I mean, he's a professional, he's a professional basketball player. He knows what role that he has, and he's willing to serve that role again. And he's there in case you need him. He had some impactful moments, but by and large, I mean, he is what he is, so it's, we'll see. I think you could and should do better at that position, but if nothing more, I mean, you know what that looks like.
Yeah. And Brenden, you talked about the positional overlap. Do you think that Sasha and Trey can be like a solid combo off the bench?
I mean, they can score the crap out of the ball. They both can shoot. They can put the ball on the floor. I think they're decent rebounders. They're smart. And so I think that can be a 4-5. I'm at 13 players on the roster if you count PJ and not have Kobe Jones. Say that Kobe Jones is a 2-way, right? Or if Kobe Jones slots in, then you're at 14.
I think he'll be a roster player.
Okay, which would make sense to me. One spot left, like there's wing depth and there's this 5 conversation. I would go with the 5. I personally don't love the idea of relying on Queta. I think that there could be something there, but relying on it is questionable. And Len, was limited at times last year. Like I was surprised by the decision to bring him back, but if they bring in another guy, I think that it would make sense. But if you say that they are only one guy left that they're looking to bring in, I would look towards center as the primary priority for me at this point.
Sean, he brought up PJ. PJ Dozier, the Kings have until the 10th to make a decision on his team option. I think it's $2.4 million. It's a minimum scale deal. But what do you think? Because initially I was like, oh, they probably won't keep PJ Dozier. But then when you look at sort of the need of this team, you're thinking, okay, they could use a defensive-minded guy who can shoot the 3 a little bit as like the third point guard. Could PJ Dozier fit the mold as a big backup point guard? We saw him as a playmaker last year. He's had playmaking ability in the past. And either way, you're looking at your backup point guard position as someone like Matthew Dellavedova, who they had last year, who did end up playing here and there, which was, I think, is a shock to all of us. But even when he did play, I thought the team was better served by not having him bring the ball up and just handing the ball to Malik Monk and having someone play off of Monk as that backup point guard. So what are your thoughts on PJ? And do you think that there's a shot that he comes back?
Yeah, I think there's a shot. I asked myself that question a lot, wondering just with the picks that they made in the second round, realizing that someone like Kobe Jones might be likely of a roster player, and how that could affect PJ's standing on this team. But again, a 6'6" point guard, really, I mean, just having that length and, let's face it, his experience. I mean, he's a little bit older, a guy who has seen a lot of things, played on playoff teams. So I think if you can, I don't think it's going to cost that much. Obviously, with the option there, if he's willing to accept that type of role and maybe come to life in training camp, he's not going to be on this summer league roster unless they guarantee the money and then try to add him to the Vegas one. I don't see that happening because these summer league rosters are very much in flux. You might see some guys in California Classic and then not play in Vegas and then add new players for Vegas. They're all subject to change. So I don't think that's the route they would go. But yeah, I could see PJ Dozier being guaranteed and try to fit him into that mold, especially with a lot of these point guards getting kind of big paydays. I think to get him around $2 million would be an option you're willing to take. And if you can upgrade later on, certainly either package him in that move or even if you have to, kind of eat that money, wouldn't be the worst thing.
Yeah, I agree. Someone brings up Mo Bamba in the chat. Like, why not give a guy like Mo Bamba an opportunity? To be honest with you, like if Mo Bamba wants to play for the minimum, I would bring him in and have him compete with Keita and see who wins. That to me is like, okay, Mo Bamba really hasn't proven that he's much of an NBA player yet. And, he can block shots, he can hit the three, but he couldn't beat out Bol last season for minutes in Orlando. I mean, and he hasn't been able to earn a spot on like a 25 to 33 win Orlando Magic team over the last 4 years. So I'm not considering him as like some sort of nugget that you might stumble upon something. But I still think that he would be intriguing. What are your thoughts, Brennan?
Yeah, I guess. It feels.
What about Nerlens? What about Nerlens?
Hey, if he's out there, get it done yesterday.
Wow.
No, I mean, like, Mo Bamba doesn't really do anything for it. It feels like the Keita thing again. That's kind of your younger upside swing. And to me, if you're going to go and spend some money on a guy in this spot, that maybe try to look for somebody a little bit more established. I got to go back again and look through exactly what names are available. But like, Robin Lopez is kind of similar to Alex Len. But I don't know. I think there's some intriguing options. Is Dario Saric a backup five that could be interesting? Is that too similar to Trey Lyles? Like, I don't know. I'd rather try to look in a little bit of a safer direction. Mo Bamba just hasn't shown anything to me. He's been all hypothetical and got a song about him and people love him. And I just don't think he's great.
Yeah. And I'll say this too, right now, as we said, I have the Kings at $4.5 million in cap space. And I believe that was without PJ Dozier. So if they waive PJ Dozier, I have them at 4.5 million. They could even waive PJ Dozier and then come back to PJ Dozier later. And I know that sounds strange, but you can, in order to use him as not a cap space person, but as you can sign him at a veteran's minimum, which is what the Kings are doing with Alex Len at 3.2 million. But 4.5 million. And if you were to sign Keon Ellis to a two-way deal, then you could get back up to like 6.3 million. Now you're starting to look at money that could be used for a player. I mean, I think, again, Plumlee made like $7-8 million last year. Christian Wood is still sitting there waiting for someone to call. And who knows if that's someone that could actually, sort of rebuild his value after a strange season in Dallas. And maybe he would take less money to play for a winner. That's something that like I would kick the tires on it and keep looking for players like that. Andre Drummond, someone brings up in the chat. I think Andre Drummond went back. Didn't he go back to Chicago?
Yeah,
he did.
He picked up his team option. Not that you couldn't trade for Andre Drummond, because I think that they would trade him with no question.
Some of the other names I see are just real quick: Bismack Biyombo, Gorgie Dang, Willie Hernan Gomez. I would have liked, bringing Damian Jones back before he got moved. No, that's the other
Gomez. Juan Hernan Gomez. Give me him.
Yeah, where's Damian Jones? I like Damian Jones.
He just got traded to Cleveland.
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I like him. Someone asked, is TD gone? Scott.
Scout. It's a Scout.
Oh, my bad. Scout. Yes. Yeah, but TD's pretty much gone. I heard that early on the Kings had some discussions with him and right after the season, but they've been kind of quiet with him since. He's got some teams that are looking at him, including was it the Boston Celtics? There's a couple of teams that were looking at him. Whether he lands a guaranteed contract or not, I'm not sure, but I would say that he's gone because that's why they went out and got Duarte. Now, Sean, you brought up Duarte and just how much you think he'll fit. What is it about Duarte that you like? Because I was harsh on him 2 years ago in the draft. Like, why would the Kings go after like a 24-year-old rookie? But that was 2 years ago, and now the Kings are a team that has all 24 and 26-year-old players. They don't need a super young player to add to that spot. And Duarte all of a sudden goes from a guy who is too old to be a rookie to not so bad to have as a 26-year-old third-year player who I think he's like, I did the math, I think he was like 27 days younger than Terrence Davis.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I like, I love his physicality. I love this guy's hustle. I think for whatever reason, it didn't really work last year much. I know he was plagued by an ankle injury. I think the addition of Tyrese Halliburton at times took the ball out of his hands. So there was a little bit of an adjustment. I think he plays really well with a big. You saw that with Sabonis. You saw that with his rookie year in Indiana. He was part of the all-rookie team. I mean, this guy really looked a lot different last year, and I'm willing to give him the excuse of having that ankle injury, having some different type of role, and having to adjust. I mean, certainly people remember what De'Aaron Fox looked like when you brought in when you had Sabonis, and it didn't quite, or excuse me, when you brought in Tyrese Halliburton, and it didn't quite gel. And I think you can kind of use that a little bit as a kind of a barometer. And when you couple that with the ankle injury, get him back with Sabonis, get him back with a free-flowing offense that really would value something that he brings in terms of defense and physicality and hustle and heart. And I think he could be a type of player that really becomes kind of a fan favorite for some of the tenacity that he can show on the court.
I'm with Sean for the most part. I'm definitely getting to know Duarte a little bit better within these last handful of days. I think there definitely was a substantial difference playing off of Domas versus not having that sort of big to play off of. I think that there's a little bit maybe more mid-range shots than I love, but he knocks them down. And I think that he's a good shooter, better than what that 31% last year was. Playing off of guys like De'Aaron and Domas should help him a lot. But I think the biggest thing for me is like, if he doesn't work, so what? This cost you very little. There was practically no risk involved here. Do we know what the picks were, or picks?
Well, I mean, this trade isn't even finalized yet. I mean, this is something that could evolve a little bit and be a fluid situation. But can I just point out too, another thing that I just love about Duarte? This team is desperate for a good free throw shooter, and he kind of checks that box too.
Okay. Yeah, I like him as a player. I mean, to be honest, I always coming out of college, I compared him to Dylan Brooks. He does have a lot of similar play style, but he's more under control than Dylan Brooks. He's not taking a ton of horrible shots. He rebounds well. He can be used as a secondary playmaker. Defensively, he's good. I think he averaged a steal per game, even though he was limited in his minutes on the floor. Got to worry a little bit about the injuries, which just kind of kept snowballing on him. He had an ankle injury, and then came back from that and had more of a reaction to it. So there was a lot of issue with getting him on the floor. But I also think that Sean, your point to De'Aaron Fox and Tyrese Halliburton, it's really difficult to adjust to playing with those two different types of players, with playing with a guy like Sabonis versus playing with a guy like Tyrese. For big men, I think it's easy to play with Tyrese because the roll to the basket stuff is really, really fun. He's so creative. But for guards and wings who also like to create and like to do other things, it's not as easy. So I'm intrigued to see how he looks with Sabonis. We remember when the Kings traded for Sabonis, they also got Holiday in that deal. And you remember the stats, Brennan, about Holiday's three-point shooting off of Sabonis? And Duarte sort of has the same exact thing. He was so good playing off of Sabonis, and I think that that's something we'll see in Sacramento a lot as well.
Okay. You also get another member of Canada for Trey Lyles. I think that's a
Jordan
familiarity there.
Oh.
And of course, Jordi Fernandez just took over Team Canada,
Right.
and Jay Triano, I think, is going to be, he's still part of the program there.
Oh, and we still get the Jay Triano fake passes and warm-ups with Len. There we go. Triano always has these fake passes. One time I requested a elbow behind the back, and he nailed it first try. Triano throws crazy passes pregame with Len.
It's funny, Jay, because I mess with him about this when he comes off the floor. He never passed the ball at all as a player. Like all he did was score, and he was a ridiculous scorer. And he's like, "Yeah, I'm finally getting all these passes out that I never got out on the court when I actually played." But it is fun to watch that. So the Team Canada is strong in Sacramento. Overall, like, how would you grade the offseason so far? We are looking at a lot of these deals. First of all, like confirmation, what we know. Again, the Duarte deal is like, yes, it's basically a done deal. We just don't know what the final like look will be. It might get tied into the Rashawn Holmes trade. It might not. All of this will become more clear in like the next, on the 6th, right? It'll become a lot more clear what's happened here. The team can't comment on some of these things until they're completely done. And that's until the moratorium's up. I'm kind of confused on how they were able to announce the Harrison Barnes deal. I don't know. To me, it just was very confusing that they were able to announce that. I know it's an extension, so maybe the extension was done before the start of the new calendar year. That's possible.
Renegotiate and extend is the type of deal that takes place before the opening of free agency, because that's also why, James, they're able to negotiate with Harrison the day after the finals end, because all of your own free agents, you're able to do that, whereas you have to stay hands off on other teams, which is just silly because all the conversations are going on anyway. All kinds of tampering.
There is all kinds of tampering. If I had the list of names that I knew where they were going throughout the last like 5 days, it was stunning. Like, holy cow, how like there was an information superhighway out there this year, and a lot of it was like spot on. One guy after another going to exactly where you thought they were going to go.
Can I ask you guys about that Duarte deal? Just because I've seen people asking, like, worried, like, oh, could this be a first rounder? Like, we're talking if the Kings are sending something back, it's very minimal, right?
Oh, I think so.
I'm not expecting it to be significant draft compensation, but it'll be interesting to see, if it gets attached to a deal and you have to make other moving parts work. I mean, there's some until we know we don't. All we know is that Duarte right now is coming to the Kings. So
yeah, and the Kings have extra 2,000, an extra second round pick in 23, in 25, and in 28. They cannot trade their 26 or 27 because of the Herter trade. Because if somehow it doesn't go in 24, 25, or 26, it becomes a 26 and 27 second round pick. So outside of that, the Kings have plenty of second round picks, and that's what I kind of think that that we're going to see. It'll be like something moderate, like it'll be a second round pick, as far as I can tell. How would you grade the offseason so far? Like, because I think it's interesting. Like, I don't love doing grades, but Sean, you brought it up earlier. I wrote it last night. In my opinion, the way that they manipulated the cap so far and did all of the work that they did, I think the deals are moderate. I think the Sabonis deal takes all the weight off the franchise moving forward, because now you have your 2 stars locked up. You also have Keegan Murray locked up. You have Kevin Huerter locked up. You have Harrison Barnes and Sasha Vezenkov. All of those guys are under 3-year deals at least. And then you still have, other people like Trey Lyles under a 2-year deal. You got Malik Monk for another year and potentially more. You got Davion Mitchell for 2 more years. But what do you guys grade them right now?
I mean, I can't really do much less than an A, because when you look at, if you're Monty McNair and you're setting out a wish list of what you want this offseason, and you already wrote Sasha Vezenkov as part of that, you're factoring that in. You're looking at Domantas Sabonis, and again, I said a minute ago, I think that's the biggest prize, because that could have been an unrestricted free agent next year. So by virtue of just those two, with respect to the others, the other moves, they don't matter. I mean, having that take really just, you add a piece like Duarte, you bring back Harrison Barnes on a very manageable deal that isn't going to be an overpay like some of these other contracts are, for a guy who really fits well with the system. Like, that's a massive success. Now, yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be some people that want to, see the likes of Kyle Kuzma in a Kings jersey, or go out and trade for OG Anunoby and sacrifice the future in a major way for a guy who will be a free agent in the very near future if they don't extend him. I just have a hard time looking at this and saying this is a disappointment. Now, I get it. I mean, fans want to see you build upon it, and I would argue that they did, but they also set themselves up nicely to be able to add to themselves in the near future. Maybe it's not free agency, which, again, you're in Sacramento. You're not known for free agency. You don't lure in people. Trades are kind of where you make your most impact. Having some homegrown talent and re-signing people is the biggest thing. So, yeah, I think this is a big win for them, and I think they're going to feel very, very good about themselves going into next season. But you look around at the landscape, man, the West has changed dramatically. And the one thing I'll say about just kind of caution, and this is kind of a narrative that a lot of people throughout the league are talking about, is, the Kings aren't going to creep up on anybody next year. Even with the addition of a midseason tournament, we don't really kind of totally know what that looks like yet, but it will count towards wins and losses. I don't think they're a team that anybody can take lightly. You probably won't see as many teams resting their stars when they play the Kings, and hopefully they have the fortune of health like they did last year, because that played a major role. So even if they take a step back in the standings, and I said this about a month ago, I feel like they can still take a step back in the standings and be a more fortified unit that can sustain a deeper run in the playoffs this upcoming season.
Yeah, I think the same. I mean, I'll go a little lower. I'm going to go more B+ here, just because I think that locking up Domas is obviously great, but I think ideally, maybe the guy wasn't out there, but ideally you would have been able to upgrade that forward position starting next to Keegan. Like, I do think that you're walking into next season at this current point with, opportunity to do more before we actually get this started. But currently you still have a question of your backup wing, and your wing defense has questions, and your backup 5. You have the same backup 5 that was there last year when you had backup 5 issues. So I think there are definitely questions. I think it makes me think that we're going to see more of like Herter at the 3 and maybe smaller lineups here, or maybe we do see some of that Trey and Sasha at kind of 4 or 5. Maybe they're thinking of Trey at the 5. So I still do think there's questions. I think that you have a lot of the same questions that you had last season, and that's going to be part of the nature, obviously, of bringing a lot of the same guys back. So can't be mad about these improvements to depth, and in my mind, betting on internal improvement and locking up Domas long-term, certainly can't be mad at, but I do think there's still questions and really just the same concerns as there was.
Hilarious that I'm the optimist, but I mean, it also needs to point out, and I know Brendan just did it, but I want to point it out again so people hear it. It's July 2nd. This is not a finished product, and off-season not done yet. Plenty of off-season to go.
I think it could be done. And then I'm going to say that as far as like the cap stuff, I'm going to give Monty like an A+. Like, watching this was like a master class in capology. I think it was absolutely stunning. It still is. Like, they still have room to go out and do stuff. They can still add another like $5 to $6 million player right now. That's crazy after everything that they've already done. I still think that we have some question marks as far as length and athleticism at the wing, like Brendan brought up. But I also think that Chris Duarte can play the 3 without any problems. I think Kessler Edwards made very little sense as a move in the middle of the year for an inexperienced guy, but having him in your camp all summer long, where he's been working out with De'Aaron Fox like nonstop and working with your training staff and your coaching staff, like, we could see him be a functional player this coming season. I think that the fact that you brought in Sasha Vezenkov that can play more than 15 to 18 minutes a night, he might be able to play more than that at the NBA level, allows you to use Keegan Murray as your backup 3 behind Harrison Barnes. So like, I think you have a lot of roster flexibility. You have a lot of like positional, flexibility, guys that can play multiple spots where like Trey can play the 4, the 5. Keegan play the 3, the 4. Herder can play the 2, the 3. Duarte the 2, 3. Kessler Edwards the 3, 4. Harrison Barnes the 3, 4. These are all good things for the Kings. I think we're going to see a team that can really flow, that they can switch in pieces in and out. And I think they're a lot deeper than last year, like already. And we don't know what the final touches will be here, but like if we're talking, if they do give Trey a legitimate shot to play small ball 5 and be the backup center, I think that that's a better option than they had all last season. They just didn't really turn to it because they had so many other options. And it's difficult to take a guy and move him over to the 5 when you already have like 4 other dudes who are waiting in line trying to get minutes. And so it was tough. I think this year, the way it's built, we'll probably see Trey Lyles open as a backup 5.
And if he knows that throughout this offseason, he can work with that in mind.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and remember that Trey Lyles came into camp last year. He lost like 20 pounds, right? He was in phenomenal shape. And I expect him to do the same. And shout out to Trey Lyles, who got engaged. Last week, the week before?
A couple weeks back.
Good things happening for Trey Lyles. Okay. Let's ask like the weird question. Is there someone that they missed on? Because I look around at some of these deals that the other players were getting. I mean, we knew Josh Hart wasn't going to leave New York, and I think he would have been a perfect fit, but I never even really included him in anything because I never thought he would leave. The Jeremy Grant thing is just like absolutely ridiculous that you gave the dude $160 million. The Kyle Kuzma thing, he was telling everybody, from what I know, that he was going to the Rockets, and then the Rockets decided to, the Rockets landed Fred VanVleet, and they chose Dylan Brooks over him. And so he goes back to Washington. You know what? If a guy is willing to go to a team who's going into a full rebuild and doesn't have any chance of being decent for the next like 2 or 3 years, and he chooses to go there over coming to Sacramento and playing for a winner, I think that tells you a lot about who that guy is. But do you think that there's something that the
guys
Kings
going
missed?
after paydays, though? There's massive paydays. You can't begrudge a young guy going after his first major payday. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
but I'm also going to say that,
and it's not. And Houston and Washington are both like they're both kind of in the same bad rebuild area. He gets to go play. He gets to stay in an area he knows, coaching staff that he knows, and play with Jordan Poole now. So
I don't know. I don't begrudge him getting the money, but that money was available, I believe, other places. And so again, like the Houston situation, man, you're going to play with like
he also gets to be a top option in both scenarios.
Yeah, the Washington situation isn't going to be great though for a while. I mean, maybe Jordan Poole looks great, maybe Trey Jones works out. I don't know. And I'm not begrudging a guy for taking money as much as I am like going somewhere where like it was easier, where you might have been able to go somewhere where you could have success and actually, play for a winner. And he's not that young. Anyway,
part of me also thinks that they dodged a little bit of a bullet there. Like having Harrison at 18, 3 years, some consistency there, some level-headedness, not a guy who's trying to go out and get his, so to speak, I think might pay off a little bit better in this circumstance with the Kings.
Yeah. No, I think it probably will. Brenden, do you think there's anyone they missed on?
Not huge ones. I think there's marginal guys that I liked that ended up going to other places, but it's hard to like really say they missed on someone or anything like that. Like if you're talking like, Dwight Powell is a backup 5, I would have been interested in 3 years, $12 million to go back to Dallas, or like a Jalen McDaniels got $4.5 million annually over 2 years to go to Toronto. So I don't think there's big guys. I think throughout the course of free agency, you actually got a pretty good idea of the value of Harrison Barnes' contract. You can compare it to previous deals, but getting it to compare it to the same deal signed that same free agency, Barnes is a good deal. 18 million annually average is good value considering you look at some of the other guys around that range.
Yeah, I think he is good value. Like, and you know what? Like we've brought this up so many times, but don't forget how much Harrison means to the locker room. I mean, Domantas Sabonis literally said last year, he is the most professional player I've ever played with my entire life. Like he is the pros pro, and that actually means something. It's something that you're trying to build when you're trying to build and you got some continuity. Like he's a guy that, like, look, maybe there is a point next season, maybe there's a point halfway through this season or a year from now, 2 years from now, where he's not the same player and he needs to take a lesser role. Harrison will take a lesser role, and so I think it's okay. It's one of those guys where we've always said you need more Harrison Barnes on your team, not fewer Harrison Barnes. And it feels like the Kings keep stacking themselves up with players that are close to that level. You wish that they would have been able to go get one of those guys that are way higher level, but that just wasn't in the cards. And now you got basically you have two max money guys, and it's going to be hard to do that. Like you can go get yourself another $25 to $30 million player, but going out and getting another $40, $50 million player, that wipes out your cap flexibility and everything else going forward. I thought it was interesting too. I have the Kings, like as of right now, I think it's right around $144 million in salary, which is by far the most they've ever spent. They are nowhere near the luxury tax, which puts them in a good spot. I also have them for next season with Sabonis's money kicked in at like 147 million, and that's without Monk, without Len and Dozier's money. And we still don't know what Jones or Slauson or Queta or Ellis are going to have as far as contracts. Let me think. The business of basketball, I had an idea for a question, and now it might be slipping my mind. Okay, I think it has slipped my mind. I'll try to come back to it. You guys haven't
a lot of business. Oh. No, that I was laughing because I was like, that's a lot of business of basketball in the past hour. I think that kind of checked that box.
It did, right? Like this whole entire
chat
podcast
is pretty wild too, by the way. I must say it's. I don't know. I didn't expect all that on a Sunday.
There's a lot of people. Actually, I think this is probably the most people we've ever had for a live show. I think people are hiding out from the heat, for sure.
Everybody but Damian Lillard.
The heat might be getting to some people out here.
Oh yeah.
By the way, I guess Lakers had a pretty magnificent free agency period,
and so did Phoenix. Both of those teams killed it. Gabe Vincent for $11 million. I thought he was going to get paid more than that.
Yeah, I think he had potential to get paid more than that. But coming back to California, playing with LeBron James in a situation that you're looking to compete. James was talking about guys who kind of chase the bag in a way, and like Kuzma, for example, and a guy like Gabe who has really had a journey. 33 million. I mean, that's fantastic for him, and play with LeBron and try and compete. I think that's going to be interesting. I mean, I think there might be part of him. It might be going, man, Toronto. I might have been able to talk to Toronto, especially after they lose Van Vliet, and be a backup deal there. But strike when the iron's hot, right?
Yeah, and then they of course got Dennis Schroeder. I thought that was an interesting deal.
Ooh, overpay. Oh,
yeah, way overpay. And I actually thought they were going to break it up. Like it looked bad for them with Van Vliet leaving, and then they just bounced right back. Like, oh no, we're just going to go this direction. And you're like, oh, okay, I'm not sure. The other team that I thought had a nice, quiet, but like pretty strong and still has the potential to land Damian Lillard is the Heat. They went out and they got Thomas Bryant. They added a couple of guys on like super, super bargain basement deals. And that's what happens when you're a really good team. The Kings haven't got to that point where everyone is just flocking to them because, they're a great team that's up and coming. But I would say this, if the Kings win again, like they did last year and they build on last year, we'll probably see a little bit different feeling with regards to them next offseason. Okay. Again, the business of basketball popped into my head and then popped back out.
What was your odd question?
I can't remember now.
Oh, geez.
Well, we'll just do, yes. Yeah.
Hangover.
The fog. We'll just do the business of basketball. who is your biggest winner, like overall? I mean, whether it's an individual or it's a team.
Fred VanVleet.
That's a good one.
What was that?
Fred VanVleet.
Yeah. I mean, like as an individual, I'd say Jeremy Grant too, although he now gets to play with a bunch of kids, right? So I don't know that that's going to be a lot of fun, unless they can turn that into gold.
I think Milwaukee's one here because there was a lot of smoke around Brook Lopez specifically going elsewhere, and I think that would have been a huge loss for them, hard to replace. Got Chris Middleton back too, so I think that's huge for them. And Phoenix has got to be the one to me. Drew Eubanks, Yuta Watanabe, they just got Eric Gordon, Chimezie Metu's on the way over there. Damian Lee. I think there's one or two other guys I'm forgetting about as well here. Keita Bates-Diop is somebody I like. So they just were able to go and get, a bunch of guys that I think can be your fourth or fifth starter with all the star talent they have there.
I'd probably put the Lakers over the Suns in that comparison in terms of most impactful free agency period, but I do like what Phoenix did.
Yeah, I think Phoenix is interesting. They don't just blow me away. Like their offseason didn't blow me away. I don't know why we keep centering on the Lakers, but the Lakers just kept adding people like they always do. And I don't think we're done.
They have to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you got LeBron and AD. You got it. I mean, they kept Reeves. They had to. They have to add to it. And that's, if I'm the Kings, I'm very nervous about what the Lakers have done and what other teams have done, but particularly them because that team went pretty deep last year.
Yeah, and then you guys brought up Dario Saric. I heard Dario Saric is going to the Warriors,
and he got hurt getting there. Sorry.
Yeah. But yeah. I mean, I talk about a team that hasn't been able to add outside of bringing Draymond back.
What's the most games he's played in the last 5 years?
Dario Saric. Well, he missed a bunch of time with one major injury, didn't he? And he had trouble coming back. Didn't he? Did he pop his Achilles? I want to say he popped.
He used to be really good, by the way.
ACL.
Yeah. Oh, it was an ACL. Okay. Yeah. I thought, didn't he play well wasn't he with OKC for 5 minutes last year?
Yeah.
20 game. No, what was it?
Yeah.
He played 57 games total. 57 games total last year between the two teams, Phoenix and OKC. 50 games year before that. Actually, the year before that, he had the ACL. 50 games before that, 66, 68, 13. 68 and 13. Add that together. Yeah, it's been a while.
Yeah, not great. Okay, so there are questions. Number one about next offseason. Malik Monk is a unrestricted free agent. Malik has he'll be an early bird exception candidate, but whether he makes more than that, the Kings aren't going to have cap space to spend. And he won't have true Larry Bird rights, so they can't go over the salary cap to give him whatever he wants. So he would have to come back on a deal that's roughly $13 million to start. He could sign a 1-year deal with an opt-out for the next year. Well, he could sign a 2-year deal, but only like 1 and 1 opt-out, and then have full Larry Bird rights to next year. I don't know what he'll get in free agency. We have no idea, and people are comparing him like Bruce Brown or something like that. I don't think he's going to get Bruce Brown money. The MLE or maybe a little bit more. Bryce is talking about the MLE and the biannual. You'd want him on the biannual because then you could still use your MLE. But again, we're talking about a lot of money. The Kings they've already spent a lot of money going forward. Are you guys excited to see Sasha?
Oh yeah, definitely. You?
Yeah, I don't know what he's going to be, but I think
you got to see the NBA system for sure.
Yeah, I think first of all, he's going to be able to get a shot. So I think that's great. I think we've seen a lot of players like him come over and have success just as shooters, and super, super quick shot. And then he also has, I think he's going to play extremely well off of Sabonis. He's a great cutter. And then someone asked about the TPE. No, the Kings decided to be a room team. They don't have the TPE. The TPE dissolved. It dissolved like the mid-level and the biannual exception in this year, if that makes sense. So if you guys are still in here, give us a thumbs up.
How many we have so far?
I don't know. I don't know because I, was doing that idiot move where I was playing it on my laptop while we were live.
Looks like
early on.
Only 125. That's all.
125 thumbs up. Come on,
128
people.
now. 3 people just jumped on. So 31. Oh,
right.
Look at this.
Yeah. See, when you
It's like
ask
a slot
for
machine.
it's like we fed the beast. Okay. Do we have any last second questions? Anything you guys want to know? I don't know. There's is Sacramento done in free agency from Wendell?
No.
No, but maybe. Like they don't have a lot of roster space, so again, they could do something like not pick up PJ Dozier's contract for next year. That would open up the roster space. They could not bring in Neemias Queta or Keon Ellis on a regular contract. That would open up space. I think they could, in that scenario, we're talking about 13 roster spots. Yeah. Let's see. What did we do with Davion? He's your backup point guard. Any word on Oubre? Oubre is sitting out there. That's a guy who I thought would actually get more love by now, but no, he hasn't.
Nah.
Yeah. No, you guys don't love him.
Well, I just don't think he's obviously he's not a guy that's going to command a whole bunch of money either. So, I will say this too. Like there are guys I've kind of, gave the to quite a bit. I think somebody like Christian Wood is one of those guys. But when you can get a guy like that at a much smaller number than you thought that they might get, all of a sudden they're a little bit more appealing. But overall, I just still don't think I wouldn't bet on one of those players having all that much of an impact on this team because they are pretty locked in with rotations. But it is a long season, so I think I'm a little bit more intrigued with someone like Christian Wood if you're paying him under $5 million a year.
Yeah. And Annette keeps saying that Sean Larkin would like to play in the NBA this season. Okay. Shane Larkin. I'm sorry. Shane Larkin. When was the last time he played in the NBA? It's been a while. Torrey Craig. I like Torrey Craig. He would be interesting. But I'm not super who knows? I don't know if the Kings do you think they have another like rotation spot that they can even spare? To me, it looks they're so much deeper than last year. And I thought last year's team was pretty deep. So
yeah,
okay.
I'm kind of thinking about that because injuries play a huge role. And you're betting on all these guys to make these big step forwards again as if they're going to just progress by osmosis. But it's very possible that somebody like Harrison Barnes, Trey Lyles have a great decline to where they're out of not maybe Barnes out of the rotation, but maybe Lyles isn't an everyday player. Just throwing that out there because sometimes that happens. I wouldn't bet on that though. I think he's got a pretty good upward trajectory, but is there somebody else? Does Vezenkov not fit at all and just kind of taper off and have to be a role player or play a different role than one that they imagine? Or does this style not fit a system for him? Or this would be a hard to believe one, but does Duarte just not, factor at all? I don't think that would be the case, but we'll see. That's why they play the games, right? There's going to be a lot of rotations and you'll have numbers and analytics on what five work best together. And obviously you want to play those five. So we'll see.
Yeah. I've come around to thinking that PJ is that backup or that third string point guard. I still think you could use depth at the 3, and that's me functioning as kind of thinking that Lyles and Sasha are really just 4s and maybe a little bit of 5 there for Lyles, but not really playing the 3. So I think you could use more depth there. And then the 5 is the place that stands out to me. So I think Torrey Craig is a guy that I really like, and mentioned some of the names earlier for backup center. Like I would really like Cody Zeller, who just ended up, forget exactly where he just went, but he went somewhere. So yeah, I think a backup 3 or a backup 5 would still make sense, but wouldn't be all that surprised if this was it.
Yeah. And people are asking about Miles Bridges. I don't think that the Kings are going to touch Miles Bridges. He's going to try to reclaim his career somewhere. He opted in
next year, right? Yeah, he opted in.
Well, he opted in. Well, he took it wasn't a great sign either. I mean, that's not a great look.
Right.
yeah, he took the qualifying offer of 8.7 million, I think, which they can rescind at any time as well. So yeah, he took the qualifying offer, and that's. But then, if I'm not mistaken, if you do that, like you have to give the team what?
Sorry, I'm laughing at Charlie.
Same.
His comment that was quite good.
All right. Okay. Yeah, if I'm not mistaken with Bridges, is he has to okay, at least in the old CBA, he would have to okay a trade because his Larry Bird rights die on the vine in that trade. So yeah, I'm not sure what's going to happen there. That's a mess. Have you guys seen Chris Duarte and Slauson and Colby Jones standing next to each other yet? Is there really three of them, or is it just one player?
Oh, are we doing this?
They look very like play build and everything else.
Colby and Jalen look like they could have been related.
Yeah, they look like they're cousins. Duarte wouldn't fit in that group, but I can see when people. I also saw people hoping that Slauson and Colby play together a lot because in some form or fashion, because I think they like the coleslaw nickname, which I didn't like. But
what?
Yeah.
I do not like that. I don't even like coleslaw, but that's a great nickname.
That's probably why I don't like coleslaw.
That's a great nickname.
Great.
Yes.
Great though.
Great. Phenomenal.
That's amazing.
I did talk to Sean Miller though, and he thinks like Mike Brown, he thinks he's going to be the perfect player like in this system. Now, whether or not that comes, but like talked about how high they were on him, how much they scouted him.
Colby,
some of the things, yeah, Colby Jones. What he can do is, if you were looking at needing any kind of fuel to make you feel better about Colby Jones or really get to like Sean Miller was. I mean, he's just raving about him, man. Really impressive.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because you could look at Duarte as a bridge to get you to Colby Miller, like to the point where he can actually play.
Colby Jones, yeah.
I mean Colby Jones. I'm sorry. So if there's a possibility for Duarte to play out this season, his team option next year is for 5.9 million. I think you already have to pick that up, but it's a lot. So like I would think that the Kings would have to look twice and go, okay, do we already have that player that's coming up behind this player? You know, do we have a player that might actually work? And then someone asked, are they broadcasting California Classic games? I believe they're on NBA TV.
I know some games are on ESPN.
Okay, and then I saw today, maybe they are on ESPN. I saw today that the first two games on Monday will be Kyle Draper doing play-by-play with Morgan Reagan as the color on the first two games as the analyst, and then Matt Barnes as the analyst on game 3, and then all 3 games on Wednesday. Is that what it is? Wednesday. Yeah, will be Draper and Matt Barnes. So just so everyone has that written down, that's who's calling the games. Are you guys again? I'm excited. I'm excited to get out there. Are you guys going to Vegas?
Yeah, I'll be Friday through Friday. So the 7th through the 14th.
I'm doing 7th to the 12th. 3 of the 4 games.
Okay.
And I'm gonna make sure that Brenden experiences Vegas.
Let's do it, Sean.
I am not going to Vegas because I hate Vegas, but and I just got back from vacation. I got too much stuff going on.
I will say,
going on.
Anytime I find myself complaining about the heat here, I'm like, damn, I'm about to be in Vegas. This is.
Oh no!
It's been 2 days of 100-degree weather. Cool it with the hating of weather in here. Like
Sean, yes, you're not telling me to stop hating weather right now.
Yeah.
No, I'm just saying, don't complain about the hot weather right now. If you want to, complain about the rain and all that garbage we just had, enjoy this. This is fantastic. This is summer. I love it.
I'm fine with the rain. The hot weather, no, stop it.
Well, the super hot weather. Right now at my house it's 102. Yeah, that means it's like 108 down in Sac. Oof. Yeah. Okay, so let's finish up. Do you guys have any final thoughts? Brenden?
Not really.
Just nothing up there.
There's nothing going on. The Dame situation will be interesting. I got nothing, guys. I got nothing.
The
I've come
hamster
around
is sleeping
more
on the
to-
wheel.
Yeah. No final thoughts. Final thoughts
So
are
hot.
non-existent.
Sean, what do you got?
I was kind of thrilled to see Camilo Duvall going to an All-Star game. If you're a Giants fan like me, that's pretty cool to see. I'm going to Halsey tonight. How about that? She's right up. I don't know if you can see that. She's right up there.
Okay. Where's that at?
Right there behind me. It's be up at just dropped you guys. That's up at the what is it? Hard Rock thing.
Okay.
So yeah, get a concert. That'll be great. Right before California Classic and then off to Vegas. So busy couple weeks, but looking forward to it and hoping we're able to do a bunch more of these in the not too distant future.
Yeah.
What's a Halsey's? Toby, sir, you are on the computer. There's a thing called Google, sir. Just go ahead and take a look at it. You'll be very happy you did.
That's funny. Big plans for the 4th?
Maybe I don't know. There'll be a cold beverage in my.
Someone got the ice cream man there.
Yeah, I don't know.
That sounded like.
We'll see. It sounds pretty good right now. Jeeves. Toby's a Jeeves man. I get it.
All right. So no plans for the 4th. What's going on?
No,
I don't know.
You guys can come up. You can hang out on the boat all night.
I hope people. Dogs will be going crazy in the neighborhoods. I know that.
Oh yeah. All right. Okay. Final thoughts from James. Go on vacation. Number 1, everyone get out. Go try to enjoy yourself. Number 2, don't get in the river, especially on the 4th of July. That I'm just gonna keep saying that. Try to stay cool some other way. I don't really have anything. I'm excited to show up. No, we had a good time. It was a good week of rest and relaxation, family time, a lot of time with the boys. My youngest has ridiculous catchphrases, which he uses all day long, every day. He's at that age.
Give me one.
No, I probably I can't because most of them are inappropriate. Yeah, he has catchphrases that are like that he repeats all day long. Maybe after we get off the live stream, I'll tell you 1 or 2.
This is the internet, James. Nothing's inappropriate here.
Let's see. Yeah, I'm excited for California Classic. I think it's going to be a blast. Hopefully everyone in the chat here is going to be out there. It should be a great time. Lots of fun, really bad basketball, but we'll get to hang out as a group here and catch up with all of our friends for the week. So I think that's going to do it. If you're still watching here on the stream, give us a thumbs up. That would be appreciated.
Yeah, please give us a thumbs up.
Subscribe. Let's see. Giving us give us a rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Jump on board with the Kings Beat. Go to thekingsbeat.com, become a premium subscriber, support everything we do here, and we'll see you very soon. So for Box 40, Sean Cunningham and Brenden Nunes from the Kings Pulse podcast, I am JTM, Kings Insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. We'll see you later this week.